let's talk about Eddie Gallagher. So, if you guys have not watched his interview with Shawn Ryan, watch it. It's 5 hours long. It's a long interview. So if you need to parse it out, please do it. Where he talks about, his whole life, basically. Leading up to the military, his time in the military, his charges, what his life has been like now that he's out of the military, what he's done, and all this other stuff. He talks about the charges that were brought against him. Recent footage has been released of not only the interrogation videos where they brought SEALs in from his platoon to talk about him, but there's actual film of the supposed interaction between himself and this 17-year-old ISIS fighter that was wounded in an engagement. And the film shows what drives me fucking wild about this, and I'm biased because I was there, not there with him. I'm not saying that. We were operating in Mosul around the same time. Mosul is about the size of San Francisco. It's a massive city. He was on the complete other side. But what ISIS had, and inside and in the core of Mosul is called Old Mosul. And that's basically, that city's been around since biblical times. And it's the core center of ISIS. And basically what was happening is joint forces were working through the city block by block by block by block, clearing these city blocks of ISIS. What ISIS would do is they would chain civilians on the inside of buildings, and then they would by the way, ISIS has drones too. So there were drones constantly going overhead, ours and theirs. And what they would do is they would put dummies up at the top of these buildings dressed as people with RPGs. And they would target the building. They would destroy the building. They would kill the civilians who were chained down inside. And then ISIS would say, look what the Americans are doing. They're killing civilians. Or what they would do also is they would capture a group of people and they would release them. And what they were hoping would happen is that the U.S. troops would come and try to help these people, and they would mow them all down. And if the U.S. troops didn't react, they'd mow them all down anyway. They'd shoot them anyway. They'd kill them anyway. So the reason why I say that is to preface who you're fighting. That's the enemy you're fighting over there. They would put heads up on spikes. I mean, we're talking about like Mad Max stuff. Women and kids' heads up on spikes as you got closer to the inside of the city. But there was a section on the outside of the city, and this compound was being utilized to put together IEDs. And that is where that interaction happened. His platoon hit that compound with the joint forces, the Iraqi forces, and they hit that compound and killed pretty much everybody in there. Caught him off guard. And there was a 17-year-old kid who was fighting with ISIS. And I remember, what's that? God, I can't remember the name of it now. Public broadcast radio. What's that? What is that? Oh, I can't remember.
PBS or
no, it's the radio. It's the radio. It's the radio station. I can't remember.
NPR.
Now. Yes, NPR. Fucking NPR. So after his case, and we'll go back to what happened and the video evidence. NPR sends a group over there to meet with this kid's parents and try to paint him as a martyr after his death. They literally go to paint this kid as the hero in this story. And his parents were basically like, yeah, we told him not to go. We told him not to join ISIS. We told him not to do it. And he chose to do it anyway. 17-year-old kid. He's a kid. Oh, granted, he's a kid. Okay? But he went and joined an extremist group, a militant extremist group, and he fought. And he got hit. He got wounded. And fatally so. If you watch the video, you'll see that he was shot in the side. It's an impact wound on the side. And when they brought him up to Eddie Gallagher at the time, kid was on death's door. I mean, if conscious, didn't look it. Barely moving. And this is the interaction that caused him to be arrested. This entire interaction was the reason why he was originally put under investigation by NCIS, and he originally went to court. Was this interaction with this kid, who, by the way, moments ago had been firing bullets at him. Okay? So the interaction was complete. The joint force brings this kid up to him. Okay. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you. When I was deployed, I treated and assisted Iraqi and Afghan citizens many times. They would bring me kids, sometimes older people that had infected wounds, sometimes broken bones, things along those lines, and I would assist them, right? I would help them because they didn't have a lot of access. They didn't have access to doctor care and stuff like that. I'm no doctor, but I can help with simple things, right? I can avoid a wound to get infected, all this other stuff. And I would assist civilians all the time, and so would Navy SEALs and things like that because there was a medic assigned to every team, right? Eddie Gallagher happened to be the medic assigned to his platoon. They bring this kid up to him. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you. When you first fight, when you start realizing who ISIS is and what they're capable of doing, you have an immediate impact of just hate. You hate these people more than anything else in the world because you see what they're doing to these people. And then hate becomes indifference. It turns into indifference. And then you could care less what happens to them. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. Eddie Gallagher reacted better than I would have. Because I'll tell you right now, and this sounds sick, but I'll explain my mindset. If someone had after an engagement such as that, if someone had dragged an ISIS fighter up to me and laid him on the ground and I watched him die, I would not have stepped in. I would have just let him die on the dirt, or I would have eased his passing. One of the two. I can tell you that right now. I would have had no qualms in watching him die. Now, Eddie Gallagher didn't do that. Eddie Gallagher opened up his medical pack and started working on this kid. He was gone. Kid was gone. Didn't make it. Right? Didn't make it. Died. But this video evidence shows Eddie Gallagher opening up a medical pack and starting to work on this kid who was brought to him at that point 80% dead. And that's exactly what rhymed with the story that he told whenever he initially went to court, was that they brought me this kid who was almost dead. I opened up my med pack and started working on him. And that's incredible. Because I wouldn't have cared less. I would not have cared. If you brought me that kid and I just saw 10 minutes ago that kid firing at me with an AK-47 or whatever the case may be, and we wiped it clean, and they're creating IEDs there, which are killing American people, and they're using against their own people, and I see that ISIS has people's head on a pick, and they're chaining civilians to buildings and causing our drones to hit them, I could care less. I would let the kid just bleed out on the ground. And that sounds so sick in the civilian world to talk like that. You talk like that, and people go, that's the most sick thing I've ever heard anybody say.
But I mean, I think that's what word does to people, when you're in that environment and you really don't know who to trust. Besides who you're out there with, you don't know who to trust. You don't know if you can trust a civilian. It does that to you. So I get it.
So he started working on him. You see him open up a med pack. You see him get on the ground. You see him put the kid on his back, and you see him start to work on him. And I'll tell you right now, that's effing more than I would have done, given the circumstance. At that point in time, after the conflict is over, you can't. It would have been illegal to shoot the kid.
Yeah,
because the kid has now been officially captured. So you can't openly shoot the child, or not child, fighter. Let's call him what he is. He's enemy combatant. You can't legally kill him now because he's been officially captured. But you're not required to provide first aid either. So I would have let him bleed out. I was went about my business. And that sounds sick, but I don't care about I didn't care about him. I didn't care what happened to him. There was no remorse in my actions when we engaged them at all. I saw what they did to people. I saw how they treated people. I saw how they murdered women and children without batting an eye. I saw what they were capable of. And so I just wanted to shout that out because he's still painted as, the liberal community and the anti-war community has painted him as this absolute out of control war criminal who was out for blood. since day one. And I want to tell you right now, listen to the interview if you want to paint your own opinion of him.
Yeah.
But he did more than I would have done in that fucking situation. And he legitimately went in there and tried to save this 17-year-old kid's life who had just minutes ago been trying to kill him. Just minutes ago been trying to kill him. So if you go to YouTube, you can look at it. It's mostly censored if you look at it on YouTube, because YouTube has their content guidelines about wounds and stuff. If you, I warn you, it's graphic. If you haven't been to war and if you haven't seen anybody shot and you haven't seen anybody in the last moments of their life, I'll put it as a trigger warning. If that kind of stuff disturbs you, don't watch it. But that was daily life for me. So it is what it is. And go out there and look at it. I think, and on top of him being charged, the whole situation around Mosul caused MARSOC raiders to get kicked out of country, and 23 of them caught charges too. Out of the 23 that caught charges, 2 were officially charged. 1 actually got charged with a war crime. All that propaganda that ISIS had about how they were painting the picture that Americans were killing civilians was a lie. Because of the things they would do, like chaining civilians inside of buildings, and then our drones would hit those buildings and kill civilians, and they would let that information get out. And then you got news places like NPR sending reporters over there to interview the kid's parents to try to paint him like the hero, like he was in the right, and our soldiers were doing terrible things to him. And thank goodness that's not how the interview came out, because his parents were like, yeah, we told him not to go. We told him not to join ISIS. We told him it was a bad idea, and he went anyway. So all this stuff, please do your research. I know that there's a lot of stuff out there, and I'm emotionally involved in it because we were involved in the same operation as those guys were. We did the same thing those guys did, and it could have been me. So easily. It could have been me. It could have been anybody in my squadron. It could have been anybody that they just randomly grabbed and said, "Guess what? You're now under investigation for war crime." They could have picked any of us, right? It just happened to be as high profile as it could be because it was a Navy SEAL, and of course, the Navy SEALs are they're world renowned now after killing Bin Laden, and so it was just high profile. But watch the interview if you haven't, and look up the video. The video has been declassified and released. You can view it, and it collaborates exactly how he recounted it during his in-court statement, as well as his interview with Shawn Ryan. So if you want to check that out, please do so. It's available.
Good deal. It's a good story, man. War messes people up big time.
It what?
War messes people up big time when you're out there.
I mean, it's just war is a natural part of history, right? I mean, we're constantly going to be at conflict. I'm just letting you know that, the progression over there, if you're involved in conflict, is hatred. That's the initial reaction you have, is hatred. Whether it's toward a group of people or a specific or your enemy, it becomes hatred.
It's hard to have any sort of compassion when you see what they do.
Yep. And then it becomes indifference. And then the hatred and then the hatred forms into indifference. And after you've been over there for 4 or 5 months, you've already passed those phases. First it's shock, then it's hatred, then it's indifference. That's the progression of every single person over there. When you notice that 1,000-yard stare, or the deadness in the eyes, they've hit indifference. They're just there's no feeling for what you're doing, because you saw how evil these people are, and you don't feel bad for them, period, ever, under any circumstances. But looking from the outside, if you were never there, you look at war and you go, those other people are humans too. Those other people are humans. They have families. They have lives. They're fighting for what they believe in. And if you simplify it down to that point, if you simplify it down to, the Germans were fighting for what they believed in too. They were fighting for what they believed in versus what we were fighting for what we believed in. Well, if you simplify it down to that point, I guess you're right. It's one ideology versus the other. But the ideology we were fighting in World War II was, no, the white race is not the pure race, and you don't deserve to control the entire world and kill everybody that's not white, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what Hitler believed, that the Aryan race was the superior race, and that everyone not Aryan should die, right? The Jews were just the first target. The same thing as with ISIS. They believe that Islamic belief, an extreme Islamic belief, is the only way, and if you don't do it, you deserve to die. That's it. That's what they believe. So it's the same ideology that we're fighting over there that we're fighting here in World War II. The only difference is it hasn't gotten as big as what happened in Europe.
Well, I'm ready for war to be over, and then we can have some massive world orgies and live happily ever after.
Fucking God. Is that how you believe peacetime to be?
That's it, man. That's it.
Well, that's what happened after World War II got over. That was the boomer generation there, the baby boom generation.
Exactly.
Everyone got back from the war and started procreating.
How do you
like
have
crazy.
10 kids already? That's what happens.